More than half of women going through menopause will notice changes in their hair, but most are never clearly told what's actually causing it. It's often dismissed as just aging, which is just not accurate. I'm Dr. Gary Linkov, and I see this often in my patients. And there's a very specific biological reason behind menopausal hair loss. It's actually one of the most under-discussed types of hair loss that I see in my practice, and it often starts during perimenopause, years before menopause fully sets in, and it doesn't present the same way for every woman. Today I'll break down what's actually happening at the follicle level and what you can realistically do to stabilize or improve on your hair loss. Menopause doesn't directly cause hair loss in a simple way. What it really does is remove hormonal protection. Estrogen and progesterone normally help keep follicles stable and growing, but when those hormones drop, that protection starts to disappear. And it's your genetics that decide what happens next. Let's talk about the different ways in which menopausal hair loss presents. It can look like diffuse thinning, where overall volume just feels lower. There could be widening of the middle part, especially when you style your hair. There could be increased shedding that you notice in the shower, on your brush, or in the sink. Hair strands themselves feel finer and less full. And in some cases, early recession at the temples, sometimes with even slight hairline thinning. The core mechanism for menopausal hair loss is that your estrogen and progesterone levels drop significantly during this transition period. Consequently, androgen levels don't spike, but their relative effect increases. This creates a hormonal imbalance at the follicular level. Hair follicles then become more sensitive to DHT, or dihydrotestosterone, and that begins to change how hair grows and sheds. DHT is then able to bind to receptors in susceptible follicles, and over time those follicles gradually shrink. Each new hair grows thinner and shorter than before. Density starts to decrease before you see any obvious bald spots developing. And this is the same general mechanism as patterned hair loss. There are also growth cycle changes that occur. Remember that hair normally stays in the anagen phase, or the growth phase, for several years. With lower estrogen, the anagen phase becomes shorter. More hairs then shift into the telogen phase, or the resting phase. This leads to more frequent shedding and less time for regrowth. Over time, your density decreases because there are fewer hairs that are actively growing. Estrogen also supports pathways that help the follicle regenerate. When it drops, follicle activity becomes less efficient. Blood flow to the scalp can also partially decrease because estrogen is naturally a vasodilator. And even energy production within the follicle can decline. Hair becomes more fragile and prone to breakage as sebum production decreases. So menopause is the hormonal trigger for the hair loss. It's not necessarily the root condition causing the hair loss. On the flip side, female pattern hair loss is driven by genetics and DHT sensitivity, so menopause can reveal or accelerate underlying androgenetic alopecia. Many women are seeing their genetic pattern of hair loss unmasked for the very first time. In reality, most women are dealing with both hormonal changes and underlying genetic hair loss. You may have had the genetics for hair loss your entire life, but estrogen was protecting those follicles for decades. Once that protection drops, then the changes start to show. That's why it can feel sudden or unexpected, but those changes have been brewing for a while. Remember that not all areas of the scalp respond to hormones in the same way. Some regions have higher androgen receptor density. The frontotemporal corners and this whole central corridor from the frontal scalp to the mid-scalp and the crown are more susceptible to loss. And then you have the back and the sides of the scalp that are more resistant to progressive hair loss. And that is why recognizable patterns begin to form. Some women notice thinning specifically at the frontotemporal corners, or as many people call it, the temples, though the temples proper are positioned a bit lower than the frontotemporal corners. And this can be surprising to some because in a way it mimics male pattern loss. The corners of the hairline may start to recede and thin out, even when the rest of the scalp feels relatively full. The main cause is that these follicles have a higher sensitivity to androgens, so they respond earlier to these hormonal shifts. Estrogen withdrawal tends to affect them first, and the hairs here are naturally finer to begin with, and this makes the thinning in these areas appear more noticeable early on. Classic female pattern hair loss presents as a widening central part, but menopausal changes will typically create more of an emphasis on frontotemporal loss rather than loss across the entire central scalp. In menopause, hormonal changes can also trigger telogen effluvium, and this can cause various shedding spikes. And stress during this phase can also amplify the shedding. Thyroid issues can also present around this time and are often missed. And nutritional deficiencies become more common as we age. And all of this can layer on top of hormonal hair loss, making the cause of menopausal hair loss multifactorial in most cases. Let's highlight a special type of clinical entity called frontal fibrosing alopecia, or FFA. This is a different category of hair loss that's often linked to menopause, and it was only initially described in the 1990s. It presents as a receding frontal hairline. So think of this type of hair loss as what we see in many men, with the hairline height increasing with time. But unlike typical thinning, this is actually a scarring type of condition, with the follicle often being permanently destroyed. And this makes early diagnosis critical and the treatment very challenging. In terms of the mechanism of FFA, when you think of estrogen, it's normally there to help regulate the immune activity of the follicles. And when it drops, the protection then weakens. The immune system may then target follicle stem cells in an autoimmune type of response. The built-up inflammation can lead to scarring. And once there's scarring, the follicle often does not recover. Another telltale sign of FFA is eyebrow hair loss. But when it comes to menopausal hair loss, most of what we see has to do with non-scarring types of hair loss. And this means that the follicles are still alive, and they can be stimulated to improve. Early intervention gives the best chance of recovery. Waiting too long will reduce treatment effectiveness. One common type of medical therapy is minoxidil. Minoxidil helps to extend the hair growth phase, and it increases follicle activity and blood flow. It's available as a topical formulation or in pill form. Usually the oral medication tends to be more effective in most patients. But consistency over the course of months is where people see the best benefits. And we have a video on oral minoxidil if you want to learn more about that medication. Another treatment option for menopausal hair loss is with androgen blocking. The preferred medication is spironolactone, and this reduces the effects of androgens on the hair follicles. And this can slow or reverse miniaturization in many cases. And it's often used alongside minoxidil for best results. It's important with spironolactone treatment to have proper medical supervision, especially because potassium levels may be affected. And in premenopausal women, it's very important to avoid pregnancy while on this medication. Let's briefly touch on hormone replacement therapy as a potential treatment for menopausal hair loss. Hormone therapy can improve hair indirectly in some women, but it's typically not prescribed specifically for hair loss. Rather, it's used for symptoms like hot flashes or bone health. The hair improvement piece is considered a secondary benefit, and there are real risks that need to be weighed with the initiation of HRT. These include blood clots, breast cancer, and cardiovascular issues in certain patients. Other treatments to consider include PRP, where your own growth factors are used to stimulate hair follicles, low-level laser light therapy that can improve cellular hair activity. And we have videos on each of these treatment modalities if you want to learn more. Ketoconazole shampoos can sometimes help reduce inflammation and in part DHT levels, and often these various treatment modalities work best when they're combined. And lifestyle plays a major role as well in maximizing the appearance of hair during menopausal hair loss. Exercise can help regulate hormones and improve circulation. Adequate iron, vitamin D, and zinc are essential. Omega-3s may also help reduce inflammation. Gentle hair care helps reduce breakage of brittle hair. Supporting the scalp environment becomes more and more important as we get older. Harsh shampoos can worsen dryness and fragility in menopausal hair. Ingredients like saw palmetto and caffeine can help support the hair follicle environment. And this is exactly what we focus on with Feel Confident Hair Care. It's about supporting hair health, not just cleaning your hair. And I would love for you to try our Feel Confident Thickening Shampoo. If you want us to send you a free travel-sized bottle of our award-winning shampoo, please do the following. Sign up for our newsletter at feelconfident.com. Follow feelconfident.official on Instagram. And email support@feelconfident.com with your shipping information and your Instagram handle. And you must be located in the United States to receive this special offer. Thank you very much for supporting my hair care brand, Feel Confident. Now let's talk about how surgery sometimes fits in with treatment options for menopausal hair loss. A hair transplant can be useful in certain cases, especially when you have localized frontotemporal recession. But it can be less predictable when there's a diffuse thinning type of pattern. And it's usually not appropriate for scarring conditions like frontal fibrosing alopecia, with certain exceptions. Proper diagnosis is essential before considering a hair transplant, and what we really look for is the stability of one's hair before proceeding to surgery. In addition, you need to have adequate donor supply of hair where we can take it from an area that's quite dense and move it into an area that's already thinned significantly. Let's go through a few of my surgical cases related to menopausal hair loss. The first is a woman who came to me with diffuse central thinning in the DHT sensitive zones. We performed a procedure of 2100 FUE grafts in a single session to the central frontal scalp, the mid-scalp, and the crown. She had long-standing androgenetic alopecia with classic central thinning that worsened around menopause. We were able to significantly reduce the degree of scalp visibility throughout the affected area. This next case is a woman who presented with menopausal hair loss, but of a different type than what you saw in case 1. This patient presented with frontotemporal thinning as well as along the central hairline. She underwent a procedure of 1800 FUE grafts over the course of 2 separate sessions with donor band trim to the hairline. You can notice the excellent reshaping of her hairline and the framing of the face that resulted from these procedures. You can see how a natural result was achieved with single hair grafts used in the first few rows of the hairline, and with the appropriate micro and macro irregularity that again resulted in the most natural result possible. So my advice is to pay close attention to early changes in hair volume and density. Track changes such as a widening part or frontotemporal thinning. You need to get properly evaluated at the early signs of hair loss, with sometimes even some blood work to try to understand the underlying mechanism of your hair loss. And the idea is to start the treatment as early as possible before the follicles start to decline too much. And once you begin medical therapy, it's important to stay consistent on it. And you need to see it as a long-term commitment, because if you start medical therapy and then stop it after a few months, what will happen is that your hair will return to what it otherwise would have been without these various treatment modalities. And if you rely solely on surgery, you'll often be disappointed because there's not enough hair in the back to replace everything that could potentially be lost. So you want to protect and preserve your existing hair and then sometimes build on that with well-executed hair transplant surgery. Only when it's indicated. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to my channel for more hair loss advice.